Thank you for staying with us. Now, the Constitutional Court was born of the country's first democratic constitution in 1994 and is the highest court in the land. It has 11 judges who stand guard over the Constitution and protects the citizens' human rights. Over the past few years, the court adjudicated over several high-profile cases of national importance, but many still misunderstand its core functions. Justice Albie Sachs was among the first justices to sit on its bench and joins me now to help us understand the court more. Albie, good morning. Great to speak to you. In layman's terms, tell us, what is the South African Constitutional Court?
You know, I'm going to take you back. It's always a danger putting me on a program because I drag in history. But history is so important to understanding our court. And this, we go back to 1985 in Lusaka. Oliver Tambo is preparing for change in South Africa. And he asked Paulo Jordan to do a paper on what we have to plan for in a future democracy so that we can get the vote for everybody. We can get freedom for our people. And Paulo Jordan came up with the idea. He said we've got to prepare for what he called counter-revolution. And that will be to say whites are a minority. Minorities must be protected. So there have to be safeguards in the Constitution to protect the white minority. And I'm going to say we because I was on the Constitutional Committee, but Oliver Tambo felt that will be ridiculous. It means the whites will be able to freeze the status quo, block any change. So Paulo came up with the idea of a Bill of Rights. And he said the Bill of Rights goes deep into African history. In 1923, the ANC adopted a Bill of Rights for a future South Africa. In 1944, at the time of World War II, when the Americans and the British had the Atlantic Charter, the ANC came out with African claims that included a Bill of Rights. Then the Freedom Charter 55 is a kind of Bill of Rights as well. So Paulo said, this is the answer to the whites who say they can't hand over power because they have no rights. They won't have rights as whites, they'll have rights as human beings with their fellow human beings that will protect everybody. So already in 1986, 1987, Oliver Tambo ensured that the ANC would support an entrenched Bill of Rights in a future democratic South Africa. Then I won't say fast forward as I've taken some time, I'll medium forward to 1996. 1996, the final constitution, the present constitution of South Africa. And remember, this constitution was not negotiated. It wasn't done at Kempton Park. It wasn't a deal between Mandela or anybody. It was the Constituent Assembly, elected by the whole nation, knowing that that body would be drafting a constitution binding on future generations. And if you like, it was a distrust of politicians, a distrust of Parliament, a distrust of the judges, a distrust of the executive. Distrust, in a sense, is built into the nature of a constitution. You don't assume that everybody's perfect and beautiful, that the beautiful ones have been born. So the distrust plays itself out in allocating powers to different branches of government, working together to transform our country, but none of them dominating and be able to control the others. Anyway, that was built into the idea of having a constitutional court.
Albie, maybe if you'd allow me to interject and just ask about what were the immediate challenges of the constitutional, or after the establishment of the Constitutional Court?
Well, the first thing was who would choose the Constitutional Court. And originally, at Kempton Park in the negotiations, the idea was the executive. It's going to be a government of national unity. There was huge debate, very bitter arguments, and in the end the decision was there should be a Judicial Service Commission representing the legal profession, law teachers, the Ministry of Justice. The President would elect people and Parliament would send people there. So Parliament has a very big role in the choosing of the judges, and the President can choose the Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice and also the head of the Supreme Court of Appeal and the deputy after consulting the Judicial Service Commission and Parliament. So that was very, very important, balancing out of the relative powers between them. Then the question of race became something that occupied the minds of the drafters of the Constitution. And they didn't want to follow what the American Supreme Court had done. It said you can't take account of race. We must be a race-free society. The Constitution says you do take account of race and of gender, but in a way that is fair and balanced and proportionate. Basically, that's what we put in there. And even in terms of the composition of the Constitutional Court, the Constitution says account must be taken of race and gender. The irony right now, I mean, it's a completely transformed court in terms of race and gender. There's only one group not represented on the Constitutional Court, the whites. The whites. So it's, in that sense, it's totally transformed, and if there's any absence of any particular group, it's white people on the court. The present
Sorry, Albie, as we are going back and forth, obviously there are issues that you raised that I would like to touch on. Is the Constitutional Court held in the same regard in 1996 as it is today? There have obviously been a number of cases where the Constitutional Court has been, the authority has been questioned somewhat.
Well, you know, studies have been done, and I think they're quite useful, surveys. In 1996, there was a lot of suspicion about courts generally amongst the people. So I would say the Constitutional Court has earned, and it's got the highest ranking of all institutions in South Africa in terms of the surveys. I remember once after the Nkandla judgment, I was rushing to catch my plane in Johannesburg Airport, and a big burly African man stood in my way, elderly man, and he flung his arms around me and he said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And I said, "It's not me, I've been off the court for 5 years." He just said, "Thank you." And that was expressing a very widespread opinion. Maybe certain people in the country were unhappy with the decision, but overwhelmingly it was welcomed. And by and large, the idea of having people who are chosen who are not running for office, they don't owe anything to anybody, only to the Constitution. People have been carefully selected. In the present case, judges selected by the former president. Overwhelmingly, the judges who ruled were selected by the former president. They must be the ones who must ensure that the Constitution is obeyed. And remember, the Constitution expressed the will of the people in 1996. It was a Constitutional Assembly elected by the people that said these are the rules of the game.
Albie, it expressed the way of the people in 1996.
The will of the people. W-I-L-L, the will of the people.
The will of the people, correct.
Yes.
Now, do you feel that politics has a power to taint the Concord? Has it in any way done that here in South Africa?
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
So do you think that politics has the power to taint the Constitutional Court, and has it done so in South Africa?
Well, I can only say that I was 15 years on the court. We never asked each other who voted for whom, who supported whom or what. Never. We never discussed the cases before we went into the court. We were all highly political in the sense of we hated apartheid, we were opposed to patriarchy, we hated the discrimination against the poor, we wanted to see poverty removed. We all shared those. Some were Christians, we had Muslims, we had Jews, we had people from different philosophical backgrounds. We never discussed the either religious or politics on the court, ever, ever, ever. And I have every reason to believe the same applies today. We are political in the sense that all human beings are political. We acknowledge that. But our politics are the politics of the Constitution. And it's a very activist Constitution. It's not some constitutions are purely technical. This is not a purely technical
Albie, we're going to have to call time on this conversation, sadly, but appreciate your time this morning and those invaluable insights. Albie Sachs giving us his insights into the formation of the Constitutional Court of South Africa.